This is a how-to video of how to play the social deduction game Murder Attempt. So I'm just going to be showing you different components, how to set it up, and how to play. We have our 3-minute timer, our 2 card stands, and our suspicion tokens. We also have our cards. We have our tiebreaker cards. We will not be using these today, but these are just to make it so that there is only one murderer throughout the game if you want to play it that way. Our relation cards, these are what each person's unique role will be. Method cards, how the victim is killed. And then we have our murder attempt bid cards and our motive cards by the color assigned to each player. So what you want to do at the beginning of the game is have each player choose what color they want to be and give them that color of murder attempt bid card and motive card. This is a 4 to 6 player game. Today I'm going to be showing you how to play with 5 players. You also need to give out 5 suspicion tokens to each player according to their color. Next we have our victim cards and our location cards. What you want to do at the beginning of the game is shuffle the cards and place them down somewhere in the middle of the table. You'll then want to take the top card from each and place them in the stands. So we have the cruise ship and the victim who died in this case is the drunk. Now you'll see here that each victim has different possible causes of death. The drunk has puncture wound, blunt trauma, mutilation, and also different possible motivations. Perceived justice, spite, hatred, psychotic. You also see, depending on the location, it could also add a cause of death. In this case, cruise ship will have blunt trauma. Now, the victim also has blunt trauma, but if it would have been something else, say the politician who didn't have blunt trauma, it would be added to the victim even though this does not have blunt trauma to begin with. But both the victim and the location card have blunt trauma, but the location will add 5 bid points to that. All right, so everybody has their color of murder attempt bid and motive cards that they want to have. Next step is to then pass out the relation cards. This is how each person will be related to the victim, which in this case is the drunk. So each person will end up getting 3 relation cards. With 5 players, you're going to end up with 3 extra cards that will not be in the game. If you were playing with 6 players, all these would be handed out. If you're playing with 4 players, you would end up having 6 extras. You'll want to take these extra cards, place them off to the side, but somewhere where people can still see them. That way they know which cards are not in play. Once you've done that, you then need to pass out 2 method cards to each person. Once again, in a 5-player game, we're going to have 2 left over. In a 6-player game, there would be none left over. In a 4-player game, there would be 4 left over. Just take these, place them off to the side once again, but where people can see them. That way they know which ones are not in play throughout the game. All right, now is the stage of the game where individuals must choose which relation card they want to be out of the 3 that they have been given. They are not to show which ones they have to anybody else. Let's say that yellow wants to be the friend-zoned as who they are. They will place this out in front of them. Then they need to choose one that they are going to hide. Let's say that they want to hide the business partner. And then they're going to choose one to discard, which everyone will be able to see throughout the game. But for now, they're going to discard it face down and turn it face up later on. They then need to choose which method they want to have. Let's say that they choose the knife, puncture wound, as their method. But then the other one, they hide along with the other relation card that they are hiding. You will not discard any method cards. Now that they have chosen who they want to be and what method they want to use, you then need to add up your points to see what you will bid. First, we see yes, they both match each other. We have puncture wound here, but then they also have to match one of these as well. Does not match the location, but there is puncture wound on the victim card. So all 3 of these match. We are good to go. You then add up all the points. Puncture wound is +5. And then also you need to add the highest motivation that matches with the victim card. We see here the highest matching one is psychotic for 15. So 5 plus 15 is 20. You must bid 20 bid points to your murder attempt. So you'll take your murder attempt cards, find the 20, place that with your method and relation card, and set the rest off to the side. You must then find the highest matching motive, which was psychotic. Find it in your motive cards. Also secretly place that along with your other cards. So now you have your method, you have your relation, you have your motive, But most of all, you have your murder attempt bid. This is what will decide whether or not you are the murderer. Your other 2 cards you are hiding, you can just place in the back, and the yellow is ready to go. Everybody else also must choose. We'll just do some more examples just so that we get this point system down. Now they have a few choices. The yellow badge is special. Throughout the game, they are the ones that can actually reveal who they are to unlock their particular special ability. The lawyer can look at 1 relation card per round if they reveal who they are. The officer will be able to look at 1 method card per round if they reveal who they are, and also will gain 5 extra points if the murderer is killed, if the officer is not the murderer. So let's say that we want to be the officer, green wants to be the officer, so that's who they will choose to be. Then they have to choose 1 that they will have hidden. Let's say that they'll have the lawyer hidden, and so they will discard the child in the middle. Then they have to pick which method they want to use. Let's say that they want to use poison. They'll use this as the one that they're hiding. So now we have to see what our bid points are. Now poison does not match any of the methods on the officer's card, which means they will automatically have to bid 0. Now if it did match, still there is no poison on either the victim or the location card. So still they would have to bid 0 even if these 2 did match. Yet we still need to figure out what their highest motivation is. And so the officer will look. We see perceived justice is the highest motivation. If the method would have matched, that would have been 20 points. But in this case, since it is not matching, they must bid 0, but we will find the perceived justice as our motive to place out. So we find our 0 in our murder attempt bid cards. And then we find our highest matching motive, perceived justice, and we will place it along with the other cards. Green is now set up. Blue also has 1 with the badge, the spy. The spy is special because even though they can reveal themselves, they can only do it in the first round. And I'll explain a little bit more of that later. I'm actually going to, for the sake of this example, I'm going to have somebody else be the rival, so I'm going to swap a card here. Actually, I have red cards. We'll do red first. All right, here we go. So let's say that they choose to be the spy. They will hide the coworker, and they will discard the acquaintance, which everyone will be able to see eventually. And then they want to choose their method. Let's say that they will choose the gun. Now you need to add up your bid points. There is a matching puncture wound, so we're good so far. And also there is puncture wound on the victim. It's not on the location, but that's okay. It is on the victim card. If it wasn't on here, then you would have to bid 0. But since all of these match, we are good to add up our bid points. We don't get any points from the location, so we get 5 for puncture wound and our highest matching motivation is psychotic. So we do get 20 points for that. 5 plus 20 is 25. So red would find 25 in their bid. Place that down. Their highest matching motive is psychotic. So they will place that one down, and they will place it alongside of their chosen method and relation card. They will place their ones they're hiding in the back. And now red is good to go. Let's go ahead and do blue. All right, nothing too crazy here. Let's say that they choose to be, actually, let me look at these cards. Yes, let's say that they choose to be the spouse. They will have the parent as their hidden one, and they will discard the ex-lover. And let's say they choose blunt trauma as their cause of death. And so the other one will be hidden oxygen deprivation. All right, now we see, add up all the bit points here. Blunt trauma does match for this, so we're good so far. And also, we have it on the location card, which means we will get to have an extra 5 points. The only way you can bid the highest, which is 30, is 5 points. So if our highest motivation matches up, then we would be able to bid 30 points. But there is no gains money on the highest motivations. So our highest motivation is going to be spite, hatred, for only 10. But it's 10 plus 5 plus 5 from the location, because it is blunt trauma. Be a total of 20 points. So blue will find the 20. Place that down. The highest motive was spite, hatred. They will place that down along with their chosen method and relation card. So blue is all set up. I put the other two they chose in the back. Last, orange will show. So orange has another badge one. Let's say that they, well, actually, I want to show what the rival does. So let's say they choose the rival with the detective as a backup. And then let's say they choose the Bat Club as their main one, and this one as their hidden one. And they will discard the affair, have the detective as the backup. So now they must add up their points. We do have a match here, blunt trauma with blunt trauma. And also we have a match with the location card, so we're good there, which does also give us +5, so the rival also has a chance of bidding 30 if their highest motivation matches with the victim. And sure enough, they have perceived justice matching. So that is 20 plus 5 plus 5 from the location, because it's blunt trauma. And so they get to bid the highest, which is 30. So that means the rival 100% knows they are at least one of the murderers, which only one other person might be able to bid 30, since there is only 2 blunt trauma cards. So we find our 30. Our highest matching was perceived justice, I believe. Yep. And we place our chosen method with our hidden ones back here. All right, so everybody has chosen what they want to be. Now we can flip over the discarded cards so that people know which ones are not in play, along with these ones. Now these ones are completely out of play, but these ones still might come into effect during the game. All right, so everyone's set up. Now the rounds begin. First round, each round will last 6 minutes. This is a 3-minute timer, so you'll have to flip it twice to get 6 minutes. So they will flip the timer to begin. Well, actually, forgot one step. You must have at least one round of sleep, where everyone goes to sleep so that the rival can see others' bid cards to see who they are trying to protect. So everyone places their hand on their murder attempt bid card. Everyone closes their eyes and flips over their murder attempt bid card. And that gives, if the rival is in play, that gives the rival the opportunity to see who is the murderer. And they are wanting to protect the person who is the murderer. The rival is in play. Now in this case, the rival himself is the murderer. So he is, of course, trying to protect himself. But if he was not the murderer, he would need to look around the table to see who had the highest bid. Whoever has the highest bid, he is trying to protect them. If he does protect them, he gets 30 points according to his special ability. Now, if there's a tie, where 2 people tie or 3 people tie for the highest bid, the rival will look to the one who is closest to his right. Let's say these 2 tie. He will look at the one closest to his right. He is mainly trying to protect that one. If he keeps them from dying, then he gets his 30 points. Now, if he protects them but the other one dies, he does lose 15 points, only gets 15 points out of that. He is also trying to protect himself, even if he's not the murderer during this, because if he still ends up protecting them but he himself dies, he will get 0 points. So he must keep himself alive along with the murderer. But in this case, he is the one who bid the highest, so he is trying to just keep himself alive. And so, and if he were to tie with somebody, then he would still try to keep himself alive. But the other person he tied with, if they died, he would lose 15 of his points. So, or he would only get 15 points if the other person died who he tied with. So once everybody has flipped their card over, they then count down from 20. And once 20 is done, that gives the rival enough time to figure out who he is protecting. Everybody will flip their cards back over. And then everybody can open their eyes, and then the game can begin. Flip over the timer. First 3 minutes. People can start discussing who they are. People can start asking questions. And it is during this time where those who have the yellow badge can flip over their card and reveal who they are so that they can have their special power. Let's say the officer chooses to flip their card over. They now gain the ability to look at one method card per round. Also, the spy, that's not the right one. The spy can only show themselves in the first 6 minutes. If it passes the first 6 minutes, then they can no longer reveal who they are. But let's say the spy does choose to reveal who they are in this first round. They then gain the special ability to secretly become any one of these cards in the middle. Now, they will not take the card away from the middle. They will simply pick which one they want in their own mind and then change their motive and murder attempt card, motive murder attempt card at the end of the round. But since it's not the end of the round yet, the spy does not change. The officer during each round can choose one person that they choose to look at their method card. Let's say that they choose to look at this person's method card. They can look at this one, not the backup one, but they can only look at the real one that they have. And so only the officer looks at it. They see that they have a bat club with blunt trauma. Now, the officer can either choose to reveal that information to everybody else. They can choose to lie about it for whatever reason. Or they can choose to not reveal what they saw. Now, if someone else in the place, say the lawyer, could, if the lawyer revealed themselves, they cannot look at the same person's cards in that round. So say the officer already looked at the method card, the lawyer would no longer be able to look at this person's relation card. They would have to choose somebody else's card to look at. All right, let's say that this timer has been flipped over twice already for 6 minutes. Everybody must give a suspicion token to somebody who they think is the murderer before the time is up. So let's say most everybody gets a suspicion token to somebody else before the time is up. But let's say red is too slow. They do not get a suspicion token out to somebody before the 6 minutes is up. If that's the case, they are forced to give their token to the victim as a suicide. Now, anybody can give their token to the victim if they think it is a suicide. A suicide is possible if everyone bids 0. So it is possible that it was a suicide if nobody bid anything other than 0. But also, if the time runs out and you have not given out your suspicion token, it must go to the victim. All right, so that's the end of the first round. Since the spy has revealed themselves, they now must choose someone else they must be. Let's say they secretly choose to be the grandchild. They now must look at their method card and re-add their points. So puncture wound, that does add up. And there is puncture wound on this. So that is +5, highest matching motivation is perceived justice. So that is 25 total points, which means, actually, it is still 25, but if it was different from what they had, they would need to swap it out. But since it's the same, they can keep it the same. And their motive is different, though. It has changed to perceived justice. So red must switch out their motive card to perceived justice. Once that happens, everybody then must go back to sleep. Now this second sleep round only happens if the spy reveals themselves, so that the rival can see if anything changed. Let's say that they managed to be able to bid 30 points. If that's the case, now the rival and the spy would be tied with 30, so the rival would be trying to keep themselves alive, as well as trying to keep now the grandchild, who was the spy, alive, so that they don't lose some of their points. Once that happens, the second round begins. Turn the timer over. If during the first few minutes everybody gives away a suspicion token except one person, let's say everybody gives a suspicion token except for Orange. Orange has 1 minute after everybody else gives a suspicion token to give a token out. That way they don't hold up the game. So let's say they come over here. You keep playing rounds of this until either one person gets 10 suspicion tokens, or until everybody gives away all of their tokens. But you can only give away one token per 6-minute round. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So in this case, let's say we've played several rounds. This individual ends up getting 10 suspicion tokens. The game would end. And then people would add up their points based on their special abilities and suspicion tokens. For each suspicion token that you got towards murder, which in this case, all these people ended up getting a large amount of suspicion tokens towards a murderer, they will add 5 points for each suspicion token that they got correctly to the murderer. So blue, say, would end up getting 10 points off of this. But also, since the rounds ended early, you also get to count up the suspicion tokens that you kept to yourself. So in this case, 5 points for each one that blue has. So blue now has a total of 20 points. But also whatever special abilities you also want to add up at this point as well. For instance, the spouse will gain 15 extra points if the ex-lover dies. In this case, the ex-lover was not in play, so this special ability does not matter. But if it was in play and they died, the spouse would get 15 points. But also minus 5 points if the ex-lover stayed alive. If the ex-lover was in play, then the spouse would get minus 5 points if they didn't die. But in this case, the ex-lover is not in play, so the spouse ignores that. Let's say the spy, who is now the grandchild, they would now play as if they are the grandchild. Also, let's say that the spy actually ended up choosing to be something like the officer, if the officer was discarded. They could then later reveal themselves as the officer and then be able to play exactly as the officer would play. In this case, they were the grandchild, and they would gain 5 extra points if the parent stayed alive. The parent, though, was not in play, so this does not apply. Now, the friend-zoned is a special one, and I will probably do a different video on going over each of the special abilities. But they will gain 30 extra points if they get others to kill them if they are not the murderer. In this case, the friend-zoned did not manage to get other people to kill them, so they would not gain those 30 extra points. So instead, they just add up their suspicion tokens that they got correct, and do not count this. Now, if they did get others to kill them, they would not add up the suspicion tokens and instead just get 30 points. Now, in this example, the murderer did die, but let's say that the murderer won. They would get their bid points. They would not count suspicion tokens ever if you are the murderer. Instead, you get the points that you bid as the amount of points that you got. Also, if you are the only murderer, if there's no tie, and you manage to stay alive, that is considered the perfect crime. If you do the perfect crime, you get to double the points you bid. So if he would have won, if the rival would have won in this case, he'd have gotten 60 points, which is huge. You want to be the only murderer and you want to win as a high motivation, you would get 60 points. In this case, they caught him, they gave their suspicion tokens to him, and so he gets 0 points this round. Once you do that, you then take back all the relation and method cards, reshuffle them, and give them out again. For the next round, you give back all the suspicion tokens to their colors, and you start a new round. Also, you take these, you put them at the bottom of the pile, the location and the victim, you grab the next one on top. In this case, it's the troublemaker on the island getaway, and then you would start a whole new round where people do new bids, have new relations, new methods, and add up new bid points. You play as many games as it takes until somebody reaches 100 points, at which point the game, the playing session ends, and that person is declared the winner. So that is how to play Murder Attempt.